And speaking of the United States, the US and Iranian officials have kicked off indirect talks on reviving the embattled 2015 nuclear accord, negotiations that will face the challenge of bitter relations between Washington and Tehran. In the latest, Iran has welcomed the recent comments made by American officials about lifting sanctions.
این موضع رو ما واقع‌گرایانه ارزیابی می‌کنیم، امیدوار کننده ارزیابی می‌کنیم و این موضع می‌تواند آغازی برای اصلاح روند نادرستی باشه که دیپلماسی رو به بنبست رسونده بود. ما از این اظهارات استقبال می‌کنیم. فعلا نمی‌تونیم.
The parties to the 2015 nuclear agreement have gathered in Vienna. These parties, known as the so-called Joint Commission, had placed limits on Iran's nuclear activity in exchange for lifting international sanctions. American and Iranian negotiators are not expected to meet directly. Instead, diplomats from Iran, France, Germany, the UK, Russia and China are meeting in central Vienna. The US delegation, headed by the White House Special Envoy for Iran, Robert Malley, will stay at a separate hotel nearby, while European intermediaries will shuttle between the Iranian and American delegations. Despite tensions between Washington and Tehran, this gathering marks a diplomatic breakthrough. The first US diplomatic overture to Tehran in more than 4 years. It comes 6 weeks after the Biden administration first offered to meet with Iran. That opening was followed by weeks of back-channel efforts. Tehran has ruled out face-to-face bilateral discussions, but the presence of both Iran and the United States in the Austrian capital will aim to bring all sides back into compliance with the accord. The US State Department does not anticipate any breakthrough in these discussions, but considers it a healthy step forward.
We don't underestimate the scale of the challenges ahead. These are early days. We don't anticipate an early or immediate breakthrough, as these discussions we fully expect will be difficult. But we do believe that these discussions with our partners, and in turn our partners with Iran, is a healthy step forward.
For more details, we earlier spoke with WION's correspondent Lucy Huff from Brussels. Let's listen in.
Well, both Iran and Washington are warning that we shouldn't expect any major breakthrough from these talks, but nonetheless they are significant. This is the first time that there's been any major attempt to get Washington back around the table to rejoin the Iran nuclear accord, and the first time we've seen proper serious commitment from Tehran to meet with Washington, although there will be no direct contact during this meeting. This will be instead coordinated between delegates from Tehran, but also from the other signatories of the deal: Russia, China, Germany, Britain and France. They will be liaising with Washington, with Tehran essentially saying we don't want to meet with Washington directly because Washington is no longer part of this deal. But there is indications that there could be a breakthrough in future. However, we're not expecting any major breakthrough after these talks today in Vienna, but nonetheless it does pave the way for Washington rejoining the deal. Well, certainly Joe Biden during his election campaign indicated that he would do all he could to rejoin the Iran nuclear deal and that would start to take steps upon winning power to rejoin that deal. However, as I was just saying, I mean, the path to that is by no means simple. There are lots of things that need to happen before Washington will formally rejoin. Joe Biden has indicated that there could be a change of strategy on sanctions on Iran if indeed Iran agrees to cease its uranium enrichment program. Since Washington unilaterally withdrew from the accord in 2018, there have been a series of breaches of the terms of the agreement by Tehran that has led to the imposition of even more stringent sanctions against Tehran. Joe Biden has indicated there could be a reversal of that strategy if indeed there are steps to revive the nuclear deal. I mean, certainly the other signatories of the deal have been trying to keep the terms alive, but without Washington they have lost a key player, and it has been much harder to keep Tehran under check. But certainly, if indeed Iran has said pretty clearly that if Washington drops the sanctions against it, then it will be willing to